You should never leave a key. No, that's not because it's shitty and it makes you a bad player, but rather because you actually never know when a key is depleted or if it can still be timed unless you are already in the red with the timer. We attempted our first +12 Motherlode a few days ago and had to pug our last DPS, and let's just say he wasn't ready.
Yep. What is my boy Flinky Dinky do?
I think he didn't jump over the wall.
Not only was he not ready, he did the same type of fuck-ups you see in your pug keys that make your party members leave. Let me walk you through what actually happened, how much time we wasted, and what you can actually accomplish if you focus up, lock in, and get to work. You'd be surprised how much your own class can do.
GG!
This was like the tightest key in the history of the tightness of keys.
Now, of course, in terms of our comp, we had a couple of very good specs, like an Unholy DK, which is currently a meta spec, Windwalker, which is not that bad either, and a mage. However, the mage was Frost, didn't particularly play incredible, and did most of the fuck-ups this dungeon. So, in the scale of not meta to meta, we were maybe a little bit above average, but nothing that you cannot accomplish with your average really experienced players, regardless of what specs they play. Now, for the first pull of the dungeon, the fight went just fine. We bloodlusted, we made sure that we kicked all of the spritzers, stunned all of the AoEs, and burst them down as quick as possible, because following this particular pack, we want to skip normally about 2 to 3 peacekeepers, and this is where it starts to mess up. Now, if you're not comfortable doing this skip, I would recommend you not to do it. However, it is very simple to do, albeit a little bit specific in how you actually jump over the wall, since there's a particular space off a box that you need to jump towards so that you can skip over. So you see these boxes here, you jump and then you aim towards the corner in the side, and then you're down and fine. The thing with this skip is that you need to do it really quick, and you'll see me and the tank doing the skip pretty much perfectly, and this avoids the patrolling peacekeeper. There we go, we managed to skip past it, but we didn't notice that the mage and Marcelian were left behind, and the tank pulled because we want to make good time and want to time this dungeon, and it's very tight, and the DK left behind as well since the mage actually extra pulled. And now I'm stuck with the tank here, the healer is not with us, the healer is probably gonna die soon, so what do? We immediately call a wipe so that we can regroup and do it again. This is a major time loss, and in most, if not all of our 11s and 12s, somebody instantly leaves after a pull like this. But we didn't want to leave yet. We've been struggling timing a 12, and we said, all right, fuck it. We have a lot of damage, we have good classes, let's see if we can make this work. Where's the mage? The mage is not here. What are we doing? Are we passing? No, the mage is dying again. Mage pull, mage died. Oh, god damn it now. So now I'm here with the DK and Marcelian wondering what are we gonna do? Is this key dead? We probably thought, okay, it is dead. Let's just actually practice the 12 so that we know what to do in our next 12 Motherlode. But we always have the mentality, okay, let's see if it actually works. Maybe it's a struggle in vain. We don't know. So now the plan is for the mage to die as close to us so that we can mass res the mage and continue on, because at this point we really don't want to play these peacekeepers, because if we do, we 100% don't time this key anymore. I wanted to go through, but the mage was still not here. Went back. Marcelian wanted to res the mage. Maybe he's a little bit too close to the pack, and you will see him actually body pull, trying to mass res the mage and die in just a second. Oh, there he is. The pull, unfortunately he dies, but luckily I can also resurrect instantly, aiming to resurrect Marcelian. The mage actually jumped over the wall, if you see him all the way in the corner there, and the mage is coming as well. We didn't need the mass res, the death was in vain, more time lost that didn't need to happen. Again, more reasons normal people would just leave the key. At this point, we were not sure the key would be done, since this is where normally all of the keys would be wiped and depleted, but let's focus up, do the mechanics properly, do our best, if not for anything, then to at least practice the dungeon so that we know the pulls and next 12 is 100% timed. One big tip that will apply to the rest of this video and the rest of this key in general is If you find yourself in this situation, don't try to cut corners. You would be surprised at how much you can accomplish if you play properly, because you might be tempted to pull a little bit more, to do fewer mechanics, to get a little bit more damage to the boss instead of actually doing the balls that this boss spawns, for instance. That would actually create more situations of high risk, high reward that can essentially get somebody killed or get you wiped, which would 100% deplete the key. Rather, what you want to do is focus. As a melee, okay, I need to do these football balls. I'm not going to call it soccer. Suck it, Americans. And make sure that the boss just gets all of the debuffs in, no bomb explodes. And by doing this and playing like this, you essentially ensure that you create more space in your key and in your gameplay to perform even better, since all of the mechanics and the wipe risk factors being dealt with doesn't let you do anything else than just blast the boss, which is what we're doing right now. Not to mention that the boss essentially takes extra damage once you put all of the balls in. Ideally, if you're a monk or any other class with multiple defensives, try to put a defensive up while the boss is doing the knockback, since there's not really anything else that you need to put defensives up for, and then the healer can just focus on doing other stuff, maybe even DPS the boss. The balls are pretty far, but I'm gonna knock them down. Focus, calm, don't rush, don't fuck it up. And the melee DPSers that might be a little bit too greedy managed to kick the balls in, which is perfectly fine. We are essentially getting carried by the Unholy DK at this point, and I am a-okay doing most of the mobility since I can do it faster and more efficient than the Unholy DK, even though technically I have more boss damage than anybody in this party. I want this key to be done quickly with as little threat, as little risk as possible, then to increase my overall DPS. The rest of the fight is just gonna go as smooth as it was so far, but if you thought that what you've seen so far in this dungeon is all of the fuck-ups, you would be very, very wrong. More and more fuck-ups to come. One thing to keep in mind here as a melee, but also as a ranged as well, is that these extractors can cause a lot of wipes, and you will see people die here. As a Windwalker, I know that I can probably min-max the uptime and try to dodge the circles efficiently, but I want to take no chances, make sure that the kicks go through, and when the AoE starts to happen, I move as far away as possible to minimize the potential chance of me getting hit by any of these circles. So many people die here because they think they just have enough space to squeeze in between these circles and still do damage to the pack, which ironically is what you will see happen to me in just a few moments. Luckily here we have the Unholy DK dupes that is basically double everybody else's, that can offset the fact that Windwalker, at least at my skill level, is atrocious to play on these packs since I cannot have uptime on the pulls. And right now, I know that the AoE is going to happen. I'm going to try to stutter step the AoE and get as many fists in this pack as much as possible. But unfortunately, I think I will be stuck in between the pack and a barrel or a doodad here on the right, and I cannot move forward and then I'm dead. And this is atrocious for the party. I lost time, I lost damage, I was in my cooldowns, but alas, we move on. This last pack is actually potentially the worst pack of this side of the dungeon because of this main dude that does a lot of tank damage and charges one of the DPS. Normally, that's going to be ranged or a healer, so you want to preemptively use a defensive, which this mage did not do, but luckily Marcelian is on the job, getting out big fat heals. As a monk with the Incapacitate Soothe talent, I use it all the time to remove the overtime buff on the mob, which doesn't do a lot, but it helps more often than not since it limits the amount of melee attacks that the tank takes from this particular one. Ideally, you want better soothes here from a druid, from a hunter, anything like that, since mine is on a 30-45 second long cooldown that also is tied to a CC that I won't have active past this. Now for this boss, there's a couple of ways to optimize and make it quicker depending on whether or not you're melee or range and have to kite the mob and the damage that your group does. The first thing you need to know is how fast this focused ad dies. You know, the ad that you need to kill before everything else. If the ad dies really quick, you can essentially cleave off to the ads from the boss for the rest of the fight and also have this ad die decently quick. It helps if you have a lot of range. so that you can enable them to be able to DPS the boss as well. If that range is something like a BM Hunter or even a mage that is pretty mobile, you can probably afford to cleave off of the boss to put more boss damage in, since that particular range DPS won't lose too much damage having to kite the mob away. Plus you can use CC abilities like Leg Sweep and Ring of Peace in my case to keep the adds in melee range of the boss. But once again, this is a gauge of how much damage your party has. If it's not enough damage, then you always want to focus adds as quick as possible. The packs after the second boss can also be sources of wipes, and you will see us actually die here as well. Particularly for a melee, it gets pretty hectic for me to see the brainstorms with all of the ground effects that are happening. Even with my graphical settings set to close to low, it becomes particularly difficult, so you want to maintain your defensives, your potions on the use. See, Marcelian died over there, which is not really good for our party, so I immediately popped Fortify Brew and spamming Vivifies and making sure that I don't die to the upcoming dot and burst this pack as soon as possible. We cannot really afford me dying here. Luckily, Marcelian came back in time and started to pump everybody up full of heals. The main things you need to pay attention to here are mainly three things. One is the alchemists need to have their transmutes kicked. Normally, if you're in a pre-made group or with somebody half organized, you would assign who kicks what alchemist so that you don't overlap those kicks. Stuns and stops are great, but you really want to kick that, since the kick puts a cooldown of about, I don't know, 20 seconds on the transmute cast instead of having to re-stop it every time the CC wears off. The second thing is the brainstorms that you constantly see here. Now, this has more to do with the tank than you, since if you are a melee, there's not much you can do outside of just not doing any damage, period, which is not really what you want to do, especially when you're out of time for the dungeon. Normally, as a tank and as everybody else, you want to stay stacked so that you can kite the pack away from the brainstorms. Here you see the mage die to the echo blades, which are a frontal, and you don't want that to happen to you. I believe the frontals were on myself and the mage somehow got caught in the crossfire. I rarely die to these frontals, so I'm not really sure what else the mage could have done outside of us just constantly AoE interrupting like you see here to make sure that the echo blades don't go out. This particular pack, since it has two masterminds, is the best example of why normally it's better to have everybody stack on the tank so that all of the brainstorms happen in one place. Then the pack can easily be moved away and safely DPS'd by mostly melees. The third boss is probably the easiest boss of the dungeon. There's not much to say here outside of just pure positioning, which again is mostly on the tank. As long as you put the boss in the middle when this mechanic happens, everybody will safely be on the same side of the puddles so that we can push the puddles away. If you weren't aware so far, you want to make sure that you hit as many of the puddles as possible if you are targeted by the propeller beam thing. So you would want to rotate around the boss so that the winds spread across the entire platform and pushes as much of the Azurite puddles off of the platform as possible. And outside of that, just do as much damage as possible. After the third boss, it's all on your tank's route. Most people do a similar route depending on the key level and the person in question. But the most important thing here is the mines. And you want to make sure that you cleave them as safely as possible. You don't want to avoid the mines too much because there's no real way for you to progress to the last boss without triggering 10 mines or something like that. So at least just trigger them all at once, use AoE CCs and cleave them down. If there's a mine focused on you, try to be decently far away from that mine. They won't blow up unless you're like really on top of them, and they won't blow up on other people either. So you want to make sure that they are cleaved for your friends. And if you're a monk, luckily for you, you have Ring of Peace, which is probably the best utility kit here that can save a lot of the people. And you will actually see me using it in a second while I'm staying behind and getting targeted by 2 mines. Oh my god. Luckily I had the ring and I could easily dodge. It was very close. I could have probably died there. And we're gonna keep doing these packs until the last boss. Now this is the part where most tanks, especially pug tanks, are not 100% sure if they have enough percentage. An easy way to remember all of these percentage, unless you're using the Marcelian Online player profile available in the description as well. All you need to understand is that the mines award you 0.22% each and the big dudes 4.8% each, which means that 5 mines will give you a full percentage of trash clear and a mine and a big dude will give you a full 5%. If you can count it that way, it will be easy for you to get all of the missing percentage here, which you will see us do at the end of the fight. There are two ways to do this last boss, the easy and the hard way. The easy way is to stay right here where we are in a safe spot where this spot will never be targeted by the bombs. The only way you can do this is if your healer is 100% comfortable in healing everybody once they're hit by the homing rocket. You saw the mage just there taking the rocket away, which is great. Sometimes you can do that, but a lot of the times the mechanics will overlap and you will not be able to do that as well. If the healer can heal everybody and people pop their small defensives, then that's great. This is the best way to do it. Otherwise, you would have to constantly look at the sides where the ads spawn so that you can see where the bombs will hit the ground and not be there. That will also imply that the tank will constantly move the boss in the safe parts of the arena, because otherwise you might get the Gatling gun from the boss, zone you out of your party and potentially push you into the bombs. If that ever happens, note that the Gatling gun will not kill you. It's not a one-shot unless you go to pretty high enough keys where it might become a one-shot, but you're gonna take significantly less damage from it than the bomb. So if you have to choose whether or not to be hit by the Gatling gun or the side bombs, the side little circles, get hit by the Gatling gun. If you pass through it counter to its direction, then you'll take minimal damage, and if you pop a defensive, your HP bar might not even move at all. In the intermission, you want to focus one of these ads down really quickly, as you'll start to soon see that it does a lot of the damage. Because this part is very tricky, you might actually lose players here, since if the healer is targeted by the boss to drop down on one of the rockets, like in this situation, the healer is out of range of you, and you might die. Look at how much damage. The mage actually died, and I am close to dying as well because we're just out of range of everybody. There are ways to bait the ads closer to the middle, but we're short on time and we want to make sure that we kill them as quick as possible. Pop your defensives, use potions. If you're a hybrid, use off fields and get these ads down without dying. And then the last phase is just the same with one little caveat, and you will see it on the side Windwalker on the screen right now where the mechanics are scrolled down. That is the raid ability time on Windwalker, by the way, that these mechanics will eventually overlap, which I'm talking about the Gatling gun and the little circles. When that happens, then you might have to choose whether or not to stand in the Gatling gun or in the circles, and you'll always, of course, choose the Gatling gun. I have a lot of time here, so I decided to take the rocket out and then instantly go back in. And luckily, we actually this is what luck is called, is when this Gatling gun happens, we will actually have space to dodge the rockets and not be hit by it. And now the boss is dead. We're just missing a little bit of percentage, but like I mentioned before, getting the mines and the big dudes just enough. I think here we just need about 4 mines and we're good. I hope you enjoyed this commentary, and maybe this can paint a clearer picture as to what keys are timeable and what keys are not. This was accomplished because we were decently geared, we were playing decent classes, and we were decent at them, but still fuck-ups happen, which can happen at any key level. That doesn't mean you have to leave the key, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all keys are timeable regardless of how many mistakes they happen. And we've had plenty of examples like that, and I'm sure you have those examples as well. Let us know what you think in the comments, and what was your spiciest key this season, because this season is rocking really hard. Probably the best Mythic Plus season of the recent expansions, and you can see that in this video right here.